Everybody has a story, but not all stories have been told. This is Benson the Storyteller, and these are some of my untold stories. Hello, my people. Welcome to my YouTube channel. For those of you who are new to my channel, my name is Benson the Storyteller, and these are my untold stories. For those of you who are regular viewers, welcome back and thank you for subscribing to my channel. Now, on my previous video, I was telling you guys about the things that I didn't like about APTC primary school, and the fact that sometimes no one used to come and visit me during the visiting days, and it really made me lonely. And I think that was one of the reasons why I decided to run away from school, and go, and if my parents couldn't come and visit me, then I'd go visiting, out of school, if that was the case, and that was what kind of pushed me to start considering leaving school, and especially boarding, because I saw that some of my cousins were in day schools, and they always got to go to school and go back to their families, see their parents, eat home food. And me, I was in boarding school. No one used to come to visit me when parents were visiting other students, and it made me feel really lonely. So that was the major reason that made me start scheming, start planning, and you guys, you've watched Prison Break, right? How these prisoners planned and schemed, and came up with a plan to escape from prison. Well, this is kind of the same thing, because running away from APTC primary school was no easy task, especially for someone in standard 5, because I think I was in class 5 or 6 when I first decided, that I needed a break from school, and there were very many different factors why, but the main factor was the fact that no one used to come and visit. We had visiting days every term. At least there was one visiting day, and when parents used to come, I used to be one of the few who were always left, in class. We are the few who had to go and eat in the dining hall, the school food, because our parents hadn't come, and no one had come to visit us and bring for us food, and it made us feel very, very lonely, and I decided, okay, now I'm going to run away from school. I don't want to be in a boarding school. I'd prefer to be in a day school. So first of all, you have to acknowledge the fact that running away from school in APTC primary was not easy. First of all, the school perimeter, 3 sides of the school's fence bordered a national park. Okay? The other fence bordered the administration police training camp. All right? So if you wanted to run away, you'd either have to go through the national park, or you'd had to go through the administration police training college camp. All right? And even if you did manage to do either of those 2 things, the school and the administration police camp were literally in the middle of nowhere in Embakasi. And it was a big distance to the nearest public transport, So unless you were planning to walk all the way to Nairobi city, there was no way you were going to run away from school. So when I decided that, okay, I am going to run away from school, all right, it wasn't that I didn't want to go to school. It was just that I felt that no one cared. I was all by myself, and once I felt like I was dumped in school, and once I was left there, I had to, no communication, just all the way to the end of the term. All right. And even at the end of the term, I didn't get to see my parents, because sometimes I had to stay with my auntie in in Nairobi. And you guys, I told you when my videos start, at the very beginning of my videos, I told you guys that when I grew up with my grandmother, I was moved to Kisumu to stay with my auntie. All right. And now that same auntie that I went to stay with had moved. They were now living in Nairobi. Yeah. And I was staying with her at a place called Ruaraka. All right, Ruaraka, and it was where they do it was the survey where the people was it the survey college, or there's a place for surveyors. It's in Ruaraka, a place with a lot of trees. So my uncle worked with the survey, all right, and my mother's sister, who was his wife, lived with him there in Ruaraka. So when we closed school, I had to go to Ruaraka because my dad by this time was in Mombasa. He'd been transferred, so he was working in Mombasa. And my mom, who'd been teaching in a PTC primary school, then she went to Shadrach Kimalel. She was now transferred to St. Vitalis Nanga. That's in Kisumu. So I was the only one in Nairobi. So when we closed, I had to stay in Ruaraka with my auntie. Now, most of the time, I think my auntie, my uncle, they were busy. My parents were not in Nairobi, and so no one needs to come to visit me. So I said, enough is enough. I'm the one who'd go visiting them. I'm the one who's going to leave school and go visit them if they didn't want to come visit me. Yeah, that was my mental state at that time. So the challenge I had, just like Prison Break, was coming up with a strategy. How was I going to run away from school? That was the question, because it was almost impossible. This was a barrack. The school was inside a barrack. How was I going to run away? So, I used to scheme. I was a schemer. So I used to think. There were several options. We had the school van, and there's a time I was thinking, can I hide in the boot? And because there was the driver, he was called Mr. Pondo. Mr. Pondo was the father of the Mr. Pondo who became a teacher that I told you guys in my other video that caned on air, almost 100 plus canes. That Mr. Pondo's dad was the driver of the school. He used to drive the van. So at one point I even considered, can I sneak into the boot of the van? And when he goes, sometimes he's sent to the town to go print some things and stuff like that. And I was like, no, I wouldn't, man, because the van, there's no way you can hide in the back without being noticed. I said, no, that's not an option. I said, okay, can I go through the administration police camp? But then I was also like, when I get to the gate, what am I going to tell them? Because I'm in uniform and I'm going out instead of coming in. So the police guarding the gate, what was I going to tell them? Where was I going to say I'm going to? Those are the type of dilemmas I had. So I was like, can I climb over the fence, the perimeter fence of the school? You guys, that fence was like a prison fence. There's no way you are going to climb. And then it was those fences that bend there's no way you're going to climb it. I said, no, that's not an option. So I thought over this thing for a while. Then I remembered, okay, there's this boy, he's called Wangombe. Wangombe lives outside of the school, but he lives on the side of the national park. All right. And there's also another boy called Jack Cargo, I think. Yeah. They also live. His dad used to drive past, the fence, and go to the other outside the other side of the school on the national park side. But then he goes down, towards where the city is, Nairobi, the city. So I was like, okay, it would be easier to run away from school from this side of the national park than from the administration camp. When you're kids, you don't really think things through. That's according to me, that's what I thought at that particular time. So it's like, okay, fine, I'll escape from the national park side, but how am I going to do it? Now, this boy called Wangombe lived outside of the school, and he was a day scholar, so he used to go and come back. He used to come in the morning and go back home in the evening after classes. Now, on that side, there was a fence. There was a small fence, a gate that led to the national park. Now, this gate that led to the national park, I think the school and Wangombe's parents, I think they'd made some kind of arrangement. So Wangombe had the key. All right, he had the key to the gate at the back. All right, because there was the perimeter fence around the school. On the back side of the school, the back of the school was that gate fence and the national park. On the left was the national park. On the right was the national park. And on the front was the administration police camp. All right. So it was at the back of the school where the fence of the national park was. There was a small gate. And Wangombe's family lived inside the national park. I still don't understand how that was possible, but he did live inside the national park. So my option was, okay, I'm going to run away from school, but I'm going to follow that gate that Wangombe uses. All right. Now, the only problem that I had to this strategy of mine, the only problem I had was that Wangombe had a key. There was a key to that gate. All right. And I think the school had a copy, Wangombe had a copy. All right. Now, it was either I steal and make a copy of this key, or I steal it from Wangombe. Now, both of these options didn't really, I didn't see how I was going to do it, because if I was to run away from the school, I couldn't do it during the day because everyone would see me. So I had to do it at night. But the problem was Wangombe left for home in the evening. All right. He went through the gate in the evening. He had to open that padlock and he had to go with the key. So there's no way I was going to be able to steal the key and use it at night, because Wangombe was going to use it during the day, in the evening anyway. So I was stuck there. What am I going to do? Now, when I was still pondering about this, I realized, because there's this boy in school. He'd always been suspected to be a thief, right? I won't mention his name, but he always was suspected to be a thief. He had this talent of how to open padlocks. He used to pick padlocks. I don't know how he used to do it. Dude is left, guys leave for classes, and the guy just pretends and stays back in the dorms. And once everyone's gone, he goes through the boxes. He used to know how to, in school, this is another reason why the headmaster, they decided there are no food, sweets or anything. But people still used to sneak sweets, into school and have them in their lockers. So we had these tin lockers, right? The tin boxes. So there were, in every school there are thieves. Even in schools where the rich people's kids, like our school. But then sweets are just tempting, and these biscuits and all that stuff. That's basically what people used to steal, because there was nothing else to steal in someone's box in a boarding school. Maybe things like soap and stuff like that. But people used to steal stuff like that were the kind of like the poor kids. And with them, they never used to care picking they used to, these tin trunks, you just hold one end, one corner, and pull it up, and then it bends like a bird's wings like this, and you just put your hand in, grab whatever you want. you know. But then this particular boy, you never know that box was opened. That guy used to know how to steal. He used to know how to pick, especially these tricycle padlocks, the ones with that, like these four rings that look like the emblem for the Olympics. It's like there are some rings, those, and then they are goldish yellow in color. They're called tricycle. That boy used to know how to steal, to break into those locks. So on several occasions, people used to always suspect him, but there was no proof. But for me, the proof was this. Every time anytime someone had an issue, like, you know, we had our lockers in class, and we had our boxes in the dorms, and all of them, we had padlocks. People had padlocks. So sometimes someone would accidentally lock their keys inside their locker in class or their boxes. Okay, and there was no way of opening besides breaking the box. So people had like always known that this boy knows how to pick locks. So every time someone forgot their keys inside the locker or the box, they'd call him, and it would take him like less than 5 minutes. He'd open that tricycle, no matter what size of tricycle padlock it was. The boy opened it. So I started scheming. How was I going to get past that gate that Wangombe uses? So as a scheme, I started adding 1, 2, and 2. You know how prison break, you start acknowledging people's talents and you incorporate them into the whole deal. So I was like, okay, I need this guy. And how do I need him? I need him to open for me that padlock. But then I tried talking to him a bit, trying to gauge his mind, whether he'd be interested in this. I didn't tell him directly what I was trying to do, but I was kind of hinting stuff, and the way he was responding, I was like, no, this guy, he's not interested in, he won't help me in running away of school and be part of it. He'd probably go and report it all. So I was like, no, I'm not going to tell him of my plans, but I want to use him. So I was like, okay, what I should do, I should find out how he does it. Instead of having him do it for me, I want to know how he does it, right? So this time I went and I pretended that I'd forgotten my key, but I had several copies. Tricycles come with 3. So I had one of them, and the other one I just intentionally locked it in my locker. Then I went to him, I told him, in school, usually what used to happen is, when we make bets or like promises or like gifts, like in prison, there are things like commissary, or I think that's what it's called, or anything that you can use like to bribe someone to do for you something. In school, what we used to do, it was either bread or eggs. You'd say, okay, look, do for me this and I'll buy you bread, or I'll give you, no, not buy, I'll give you my bread, or I'll give you my eggs. And most bets in our school used to be, you bet on bread, you bet on eggs. That's how it was. So I told him, look, dude, it was during the weekend, so I really didn't I wasn't under any pressure to open my box because there's a teacher coming or anything. I just did it during the weekend when I knew there was time. So I told him, dude, I've locked my whatever. Could you help me out and open it for me? Then he was like, no, but what will I gain out of, But I told him, look, I'll give you my bread on break time. I'll give you my bread tomorrow, because we knew the days where, my eggs, yeah. We knew the days where we are given bread and eggs, and the days where it's just bread alone. So I told him, so okay, fine. So I wanted to watch and see how he does it. Okay, so the dude gets what do you call it? Let me show you guys. Like this thing over here. You see these keys, bunch of key holders. this thing that holds the keys, yeah, this one, like this one, but this one's big. There's this size. I don't know if you guys can see these things. These ones for the keys. Now there's the small size. So what he does, he stretches it out, right, so that it's like a thin straight wire. Then at the very end, he bends it so it's like 90 degrees, just a bit, like some few millimeters. He bends it, all right, so it's a straight wire now with, it's not really a hook, it's with a 90-degree angle at the end, all right. So he uses this to pick the lock, because I brought him and I told him, okay, please open. So I was keenly watching because I wanted to know how it's done. That's what I wanted to know, so that I could use it on the gate, on the padlock on the gate. You see how I was scheming. So I called the guy. The guy's like, okay, fine. So I see him doing that, and then he starts picking the lock, and I'm watching him carefully, and he's very serious, and he was really concentrating on what he's doing. So I was just watching it, and within a few minutes you just hear the lock's clicked and it's opened, and I was like, I wanted him to do it again, but I won't say do it again. So I started asking him, so how do you know that? He says you just feel it. There's how you pick it, and then you turn it slowly, you turn it slowly, pushing it a little in, pulling it a little out until you get the right spot, and it will click. Okay, I was like, oh, all right, fine. He earned my bread and eggs the next day, but then that's just what I wanted to learn. So I got my own wire, bent it the way it bent his, and I waited for after the preps. No, I waited for the preps time. You see, now preps time, there's usually, when we come back from supper, we have the preps. And the preps goes up to around 10, I think. And after 10, we go to the dorms. Now, remember, our school is in the administration police. So at the same time, we had the watchmen in our school happened to be police officers, fully armed, and they had a dog. So there were 2 police officers and a dog, and they used to come after the preps, all right, and they'd be walking around the school. So it was between the time that the prep started and when the preps ended that I had that space, to go and check out the padlock. So I'd planned, okay, fine, now I know how to pick a lock. So now I'm going to do what? I'm going to go and run away from school using that gate that Wangombe uses. So, mind you, I knew there was a padlock, but I'd never gone there. I'd never gone there before. So I didn't know what size padlock it was. But those days, most of the padlocks were tricycle. So I knew it had to be a tricycle. But yeah, so I went. I left class like I was going to the toilets. But then I snuck out and I went. You have to pass through the field, yeah, to get to the gate, to the fence. And the fence was a distance, right? And so long as the school, the lights from the classes was shone a certain diameter, but after that was the darkness, and then you get to the fence. All right. So the only dangerous part was passing where the lights were, because these were classes. All right. So what I did, you can't walk like a distance over there because people would see you from the classes. So I had to walk alongside the wall of the classes, just below the window of the classes. So I had to like bend over like this and pass under the windows all the way past the light, and then run through the field and then get to the fence. So I left the class like I was going to the toilets, and then I snuck under the windows of the line of classes and ran past the field and got to the gate. So when I get to the gate and I look, I see it's this big ass tricycle. It wasn't like the small ones we use for our padlocks. It was like a big one. And then I was like, no. I looked at the wire I had, because the wire I had was the ones that, because I'd been trying it with my own padlock that I had. I tried it with time. I opened it, the one I had for my desk. I tried the same thing with my tricycle in the box, for my box in the dorms, and I tried it for a long time. Like, I took almost a week just practicing, and I'm telling you guys, I got to know how to do it. It took me a week. I was like, in my free time, I'd just try this thing, and then I got the hang of it, how it's done. But it's more kind of trial and error. But then I got to, get the hang of how it's done. But then my tricycles weren't the big size, so I never done it with a big one. So I went. When I got there, I saw the padlock. It was too big. The wire I had was too small. It couldn't. I stayed there trying for like a few minutes. I said, no, it won't work. It was just bending the wire itself. So I said, no. I gave up. I went back. Then I was like, okay, I think, because now I was like, I went and asked that kid. I was like, look, what do you think if you have like a bigger padlock? Do you think you'd be able to open it? Then he was like, yeah, I think I can open it. But how? I showed him the example of the wire he was using. I showed him, but I don't think these wires can. He said, no, you'll have to use a slightly bigger wire, a bigger wire than that. I was like, oh, okay. So I planned again. I said, okay, I'm going to try do this again. So another day, I did the same thing. I went to the fence. When I got to the fence, to the padlock, I had a bigger wire now. All right, bent it the same way, 90 degrees at the end. I started picking this thing. It refused. I tried it. I couldn't. So I was like, I gave up. I went. So now I was like, how am I going to manage to open this padlock? Because I have to open this padlock to be able to run away from school. So I was like, okay, let me go back to my original plan. Let me revise my strategy. So I thought about it again and I was like, no, what I'm going to do, I'm going to get the key from Wangombe. I said, now I'm going to get the key from Wangombe. Yeah? And I'm going to find a way of making a copy of this key. All right? Okay. So now I decided, okay, how am I going to get the key? Wangombe had that key. He had the key in his bag. Everyone had a bunch of keys in school. He had that key, and he had with a bunch of keys, for his locker. All right? Now, I said, okay, fine. I'm going to get at least a copy, find out how the key looks like. Because, another thing that I'd realized, whenever in school, whenever a padlock didn't work, what used to happen was people would try by coincidence, some padlocks also happened to open other padlocks. All right? It was just coincidence. I don't know why. Some padlocks just used to open others. So I was like, oh, I'm going to try. I'm going to see if I can get these keys from Wangombe. So I started I started befriending Wangombe. Like, we are playing around, like, just so that I can just have a look at those keys. The first time I took the keys, like, I managed to get the keys. And then, when you're kids, I put the key on a piece of paper and tried outlining it with a pencil. Outlining it with a pencil. Then I was like, maybe I can find some other keys that look like these particular keys. Then I was like, no, that won't work. So I decided again, okay, let me go get bar soap. You know, this, because in school we always use bar soap. All right, bar soap. These ones that you cut and they are, yeah. So I got my bar soap from my box, went with it to class and had it there. So the next time, you know, we're playing around. Wangombe used to just leave his keys there. You know, when you're in class, you just play around. You're looking. I also leave mine. I just, you know, but you're strategizing how to get a hold of those keys. So the next time I did, I got those keys and pressed it onto my piece of soap, like pressed it into the piece of soap, and it left, you know, the imprint. So I had the exact copy of Wangombe's keys. So I didn't need to go with these keys. I just needed a strategy. All right, I needed a strategy of finding a way of getting keys that were exactly the same as Wangombe's, because I tried picking that padlock, it didn't work. So this was my other option, and all I had to do now was find some keys that matched Wangombe's keys, and I knew if I got that, it was going to work. So I pressed the key onto my bar of soap, turned, pressed the other side, and kept that bar soap. All right, because it was that bar soap that now I was going to use to find a way of getting an exact copy of Wangombe's keys. You understand? All right, so that was how I was strategizing, and that's how I had planned to get past the gate, you know, through that fence into the national park, you know, and run away. So that was my very, very, very first scheme, you know, of running away from school. So I'll leave it there today. And on my next video, I'll go on from there as into how I managed to make that copy, and how I got through the fence and how it ended up. All right, I'll give you guys that story on my next video, because I'm saying it will take too long in one video. So I'll give you that story on my next video. So if you're new, please consider subscribing to my channel. If you already subscribed, continue watching my videos to the very end, and I'll see you guys on my next video.